Brianna Turner has signed with the Indiana Fever per the WNBA transition page. Some depth for the Fever front court. She played for, again, I believe.
This section really highlights the growing tension between Angel Reese, the Chicago Sky, and the Indiana Fever. The signing of Brianna Turner to the Indiana Fever is a key point, and the narrative paints a picture of Reese feeling the sting as key players choose to join forces with Caitlin Clark and Indiana instead of sticking with her or the Sky. Hashtag Brianna Turner chooses Indiana, the sting of rejection. It seems like the drama in the WNBA just keeps getting thicker. Brianna Turner signing with the Indiana Fever was a huge move, one that sent shockwaves through the league, and it's safe to say Angel Reese was none too pleased. When Turner turned down the Chicago Sky and opted to join forces with Caitlin Clark and the Fever, you could almost feel the tension. Reese tried to play it off with some playful words and a fake little laugh.
Or yeses than nos, and just being able to know that, so I'm excited for that. I know that's going to come soon.
Clear from the side eye and tone that it hurt. There's no doubt that it stung. Turner, an all-WNBA defense first-team player and a proven veteran, could have been a key piece in a rebuilding Chicago Sky team, but instead, she took a pay cut to join Indiana. The Fever, looking like a real contender with Caitlin Clark leading the charge, are now putting the pressure on Reese and the Sky. For Angel, it was a painful reminder that while she's still trying to convince the world that she's the face of the league, her own potential teammates are choosing to play elsewhere. And they're choosing Caitlin Clark's Indiana squad over her. And let's be clear, despite Reese's repeated claims of a Chicago-Indy rivalry, it's becoming more and more evident that the only one seeing a rivalry in this scenario is Angel Reese herself. To the rest of the league.
And the options that the Sky have, what do you think that they're cooking up?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because Angel and Camilla are very interesting pieces. And when you're talking about, getting the right players in here, there is intrigue when you have young core pieces like that, because you could be part of developing them and developing towards a title contending season. But the reality is the Sky are still very far from that. And so this year, the focus really has to be on getting players in who are going to bridge that gap between this.
Reese is left holding the bag, feeling rejected and struggling to maintain her position as a top player in the league. Hashtag the Fever's rise, building something special. Over in Indiana, the mood couldn't be more different. There's a buzz of excitement. Brianna Turner was welcomed with open arms by the Fever, and players like Aaliyah Boston and Sophie Cunningham seem confident and ready to take on the league. Boston, who's becoming a cornerstone of this team, tweeted out, "Let's hoop," with the confidence that comes from knowing they're building something big. Cunningham, no doubt, is already imagining the matchups against Angel Reese and is probably preparing for some memorable moments on the court.
The Indiana Fever have made yet another move this offseason, and they have signed
the right talent. They're building chemistry before they've even hit the gym. Players know their roles and are ready to step in and make an immediate impact. The team is composed of experienced, elite players who don't need a lot of coaching. They're ready to play at a high level. This is what you see from championship-caliber teams, and the Fever are starting to resemble one. Hashtag a shift in power, Indiana's rising star. But the move isn't just about the players, it's a sign of something much bigger. The WNBA is changing. It's not just growing anymore, it's becoming a spectacle. The league is becoming a place where top-tier players want.
Anthony White and Amber Cox is going after. They're going after ready elite talent, kind of, they know their responsibility. They know what they need to do. You know what I'm saying? They don't really have to do a whole lot of coaching like that, teaching, plug-and-play pieces, and women that are going to come in and make immediate impact. That's what you want to see from this basketball team. That's what you see from elite teams across the
Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky? Not so much. While Reese is still trying to sell the idea that the Sky are on the rise, the reality is that players like Turner are quietly making it clear that Indiana is where the future is. This is a nightmare for the Sky, who are stuck in a rebuild while their top targets are going to other teams like the Indiana Fever, who have already begun to establish themselves as the league's next big thing. Hashtag the future of the Chicago Sky. For the Chicago Sky, this is
great news, for the Chicago Sky, who are a team that obviously they're rebuilding. This is a team that is 100% rebuilding. The problem is they don't own their pick. So if the Chicago Sky run it back, they're probably not making the playoffs next year. Look, I think there's going to be an improvement from Angel Reese. I think it's going to be an improvement from Cardoso. But that team with no Kennedy Carter,
They're a team that's clearly in the midst of a rebuild, and moves like Brianna Turner choosing Indiana over them only underscore how far they still have to go. The team may have cap space and young players, but they're not attracting the top-tier free agents. Meanwhile, Indiana is quickly building a roster full of elite talent and chemistry, and the contrast is stark. This section really nails the frustration Angel Reese feels as key players choose to play with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever rather than her and the Chicago Sky. The shift in momentum is clear, and it's starting to look like Indiana could soon take over as one of the league's powerhouses, while Chicago is left to pick up the pieces. The Chicago Sky are in a tough spot, with their roster facing significant changes and key players either leaving or not being resigned. This has left fans and analysts questioning the team's ability to compete next season, especially as Indiana Fever has emerged as a true contender in the WNBA. The off-season moves in Indiana have been strategic and high-profile, putting the Fever on the map as a title contender, while Chicago seems to be struggling to keep pace. ### Chicago Sky struggling to stay relevant.
All these people who hated the Indiana Fever last year is finally coming around to sign with the team. Go figure. Now, I don't know the whole initial thing about this signing, maybe for depth, defensive purposes, but it is funny to see how what a year make when the Indiana Fever is one of the, not one.
And Diamond DeShields opting to sign with the Connecticut Sun over Chicago, the Sky's free agency tracker has looked like a list of missed opportunities. It's left Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso as the remaining pieces from last year's starting lineup, which is a tough position to be in, especially when teams like New York and the Las Vegas Aces are stacking their rosters with top-tier talent. The contrast between Chicago's situation and the Indiana Fever's current state is striking. Indiana has managed to pull off a string of smart moves.
Something new for us in free agency. And today, it's Miss DeWanna Bonner. Six-time WNBA All-Star and WNBA champ, a veteran in this game, can pretty much do it all, also an enforcer, nasty defense. Should I continue? We have a new starting five. Caitlin at the 1, Kelsey at the 2, DeWanna at the 3, Natasha Howard at the 4, and Aaliyah Boston.
Turner and Natasha Howard, who add defensive prowess and championship experience. Meanwhile, the Sky are left wondering what their next step is, with fans scrolling their phones hoping for any news of a big signing. But the reality is sinking in. The Sky might be stuck in rebuild mode while Indiana is building a potential dynasty. ### Indiana Fever, title contenders. The Indiana Fever have shifted from being a team in the rebuilding phase to a legitimate title contender. Their roster is now stacked with talent, from Caitlin Clark leading the offense to Aaliyah Boston in the center, supported by seasoned vets like Natasha Howard and Brianna Turner. These signings aren't just depth pieces, they're impact players ready to push this team into championship contention. It's been a whirlwind of moves for the Fever, and it's clear they're operating with a sense of urgency. They've built a lineup with a mix of young stars and seasoned veterans, and they're aiming to win now. The addition of Diana Bonner, a former WNBA All-Star and champion, adds even more star power to an already stacked team. The Fever are not waiting for their moment, they're making it happen. With Caitlin Clark at the point guard, Kelsey Mitchell at the shooting guard, Diana Bonner at the small forward, Natasha Howard at power forward, and Aaliyah Boston at center, this team is not only loaded with talent but also
is nothing less than phenomenal, in my opinion. They are taking this young, talented core that they have, you know, with Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark, and they're adding veteran players that Stephanie White has already worked with. Let's talk about that too, and has chemistry with and knows the work ethic of. And they are building this super team. Make no mistake about it.
And it's clear that Indiana has been assembling a squad that can challenge for a title. ### Angel Reese, the underdog story might not be enough. Angel Reese's response to the situation? She's embracing the classic underdog mentality, claiming that she thrives when people doubt her. While that attitude might work for individual performances, basketball is a team sport, and it's hard to carry a team when they're not built to compete at the highest level. Reese's team, the Chicago Sky, is looking fragile. Without some significant additions or player development, they're one injury away from disaster. Kennedy Carter, a key offensive piece, already looks ready to leave, which could be another blow to a team that's already struggling to put together a competitive roster. Reese might be fired up and ready to prove people wrong, but it's going to take more than that for the Sky to compete with the juggernaut Indiana Fever have become. ### The Fever's championship window. The Indiana Fever's front office, led by GM Amber Cox and head coach Stephanie White, saw the championship window open and they've gone all in. Unlike the Sky, who are still figuring out their direction, Indiana is ready to win now. Their moves.
So we have to discuss it. This is what we do here. We're talking about the Indiana Fever making yet another move, Alicia, because they're Thanos right now and they're collecting all the infinity.
Every signing, from Brianna Turner to Natasha Howard, has been designed to put them in the best position to win immediately. While Chicago is stuck trying to rebuild, Indiana is going all in to claim their place at the top of the league. It's a stark contrast, and it's making the Sky look like they're getting left behind. With Caitlin Clark leading the charge, the Fever have become the team to beat, and the Sky might have to start rethinking their strategy before they fall too far behind. ### a wake-up call for the Chicago Sky. It's clear that Chicago is in a rough patch, and Angel Reese might have to face the hard truth. Without significant improvements and key signings, the Sky are unlikely to make the playoffs next season. The Indiana Fever, on the other hand, are poised to be a powerhouse in the league, and if they can stay healthy and keep their chemistry intact, they might very well dominate the WNBA for years to come. The Sky have some big questions to answer, and unless they can make some serious moves this offseason, it's going to be a long season ahead. Meanwhile, Indiana is watching their championship dreams come together, and they're making
an amazing backup point guard. And anytime that CC or any of the guards need to go to the bench, I mean, Sydney Colson always makes the right call, always makes the right decision. So to pick up a vet, a professional like Sydney Colson, and then you also have a vet like DeWanna Bonner, and you also have a vet like Kelsey Mitchell, and then you have